Our Senate Majority Leader needs no introductions to this group and to her home turf, where you've been so graciously available to us and so active in your community for so long. But still, the biting, difficult questions are on the way. So let me just give you a little bit of agenda for today. We are kind of frame issues a little bit, give you a chance, of course, Majority Leader, to give some introductory remarks after we frame the issues from our perspective, and then we have a few topic areas that we're going to get into, with some questions from the crowd. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce not-for-profit Westchester's President and Executive Director of Lifting Up Westchester, Anahita Kotval, for some opening remarks. You have to unmute though, my friend.
You're muted.
Yeah, still muted. There had to be one of those, so we got it out of the way early.
Sorry, Suzanne muted me and I didn't know how to undo it. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to our first Legislative Forum of 2022. I really just wanted to comment on the fact that I know that we are starting 2022 with COVID still impacting us quite a bit more significantly than any of us had hoped. In addition to the ongoing challenges of Omicron, our organizations are still struggling to address the lost jobs, lost housing, and ever widening health, education, and technology gaps that the pandemic has created. But I do still think as we start the new year, this is a time to be optimistic. Thanks to our advocacy and collaboration, we've made real progress over the past several months on important issues impacting the communities we serve. We secured $88 million for the flood mitigation project in Mamaroneck. A right to counsel bill is working its way through the legislature, and we are seeing historic investments in our communities in eviction prevention, rental assistance, and affordable housing. Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, as you all know, has been a constant source of energy in making this work happen since she has been in the Senate for 15 years and for the decade before that as a Westchester County legislator. I personally find her to have the perfect blend of pragmatism and idealism. She is laser focused on what can be done today while never losing sight of our expectations for tomorrow. We're very grateful to have her here and to have her service to our community, and that opportunity to share with her our policy priorities. And I'd like to now turn it over to her to say a few words before we start.
Thank you so much, Anahita. I am so happy that you all exist. I cannot tell you enough how important you are to our work. And Jan, of course, your leadership of this tremendous organization has been so very, very important to making sure that there are voices that are critical for us to hear, but you're together and mobilized and just trying to do the right thing. So I'm really happy for nonprofit Westchester. And of course, I'm always happy to see my friend Rich, who we share space, and we're both getting ready to be cast in some movie, I guess, because we're across from Lionsgate now. So who knows, I'm thinking we could do reality, we could do anything. But while we're waiting to be discovered, we obviously have a lot to do on the ground here. And I don't think I need to tell you who I am or what my record is and where I put my heart. I feel that government is there to really be helpful and certainly to protect the vulnerable and to, try and figure out ways forward. So I've been really laser focused on making sure that the communities that we all serve are being heard, are being empowered, and are being resourced. Now, obviously, I don't need to tell you, you'll tell me, and then we'll talk about what you're up against. And I really want to listen to it because we're going into the budget year now. I think the good news is that we have a governor who is not without understanding that there are needs on the ground, and not without understanding that you all help to meet those needs much better than government could ever do. So there are investments that I've seen in her initial budget that indicates she is, aware and conscious. And I will say our previous governor, I just never felt, that it was always kind of an uphill battle because whenever there was an opportunity to cut, it was always in those programs and the resources I felt in places that really, really needed more investment and not less. So we are all rowing in the same direction at this point. We'd like to see more in areas that I know you're going to represent. And I will also give a shout out to our congressional delegation who, with the American Rescue Plan helped us so much. You talk about COVID, but helped us so much, giving direct aid to state government, which was able to help hopefully, many of your organizations stay afloat and meet the needs. And I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have critical people on a congressional level who also understand that what you do and who you serve is really an important part of the fabric of our being able to call ourselves who we are. So I'm sorry that Build Back Better hasn't happened yet, but the fact that they're within Build Back Better, they're talking about human infrastructure, which is what you do. Again, is a light of consciousness that I hadn't seen, but we obviously have a lot of work to do. You're going to tell me about all that work, and I look forward to having an exchange. And I'm sure everybody, won't get to say everything, but you all know how to get me. My team is on. If I don't have answers, they have answers. If I can't tell you today, we'll get back to you and let you know what you need. And obviously you all know how to find me, and we will continue the dialogue. We're also going to have public hearings around the budget as we normally do, so that you will be able to weigh in several times between now and then. So thank you for the forum and the opportunity and your leadership.
Thank you, Leader. And I noticed a couple other folks from that delegation joining us this morning. We're really grateful for that. Looking at New York's budget process, we look at today as almost perfectly timed because this work is underway, and we feel so strongly about getting our input included, and we appreciate the ears of our delegation for our sector. So to kind of frame our issues a little bit here and our views on the budget priorities, I'm going to kick this back to Jan, and we're also very fortunate to be joined by Chai Jinder-Surat from Nonprofit New York, our partner organization, to talk kind of big picture about budget issues from our perspective.
Chai, it's yours.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. And thank you so much, Nonprofit Westchester, as always, for your amazing partnership. My name is Chai Jinder-Surat. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the Vice President of Policy at Nonprofit New York. Senator Stewart-Cousins, it's great to see you again. And I want to begin by thanking you for delivering a bill to the governor in November, and that she signed. That was a huge relief to all of us in the nonprofit sector. It was Senator Krueger and Amy Pollin's bill that repealed a burdensome new double filing financial requirement so that nonprofits can really focus more on our missions. And while we really celebrate this win for our sector, we also knew around that time that many of the federal relief programs like the PPP and Employee Retention Tax Credit were expiring or were already expired. And so we partnered with Nonprofit Westchester and NICON to administer a statewide survey of the sector this winter. And so I will quickly share the highlights of our findings. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, great. So, all right. So on average, nonprofits had close to $250,000 in unexpected expenses in 2020, and at the same time, lost an even greater amount in revenue, around $300,000. Expenses grew even more in 2021, but that was slightly offset by reduced revenue losses, likely due to government economic relief programs like the PPP. However, almost half of respondents have not recovered financially, and expressed concern that by 2023, all economic relief programs will have expired. And the largest, the PPP and the Employee Retention Tax Credit, have expired. Respondents reported that lack of revenue and change in program demand in 2020 meant they had to lay off staff or furlough staff, with 43% reporting they have not recovered to pre-pandemic staffing levels. And more recently, respondents mentioned that they have been having issues hiring entry-level staff and keeping current staff because they did not have resources to pay competitive wages. Finally, almost all of respondents received a PPP loan. So we do know that these programs have really helped our sector, but they have all expired. And so I am going to pass it back to Jan to talk about what we think we can do on a state level.
Great. Thank you, Chai. And so our request is very simple. Like small businesses who have the opportunity to get funding for operational costs, we too, as an important sector that operates and has business expenses that often are not reimbursed in full, we would like the same opportunity, and we would like to advocate for a funding stream through ARPA funds to cover operational costs for nonprofit organizations. We also would love to hear at some point, there is $2 billion in the state budget for pandemic relief. We don't know if there's an opportunity to use that line or some other line, but that is it in a nutshell for what we are advocating for.
I wonder, Leader, would you like a quick response here before we get into some target areas?
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. I understand what the what the situation is, and yes, there is money around, and there is incredible need, and I believe that there is an opportunity to be able to help nonprofits in terms of creating that stream. I know that there is, there's different blocks. There was childcare money, childcare stabilization grants in the American Rescue Plan. So, I mean, it seems that there's certain targeted areas, but not all nonprofits. So, if you were lucky enough to be in that area, fine. And if not, no. But again, I think there may be wiggle room, but there is an awful lot. We've done we're trying to rescue homeowners, we're trying to rescue tenants, we're trying to rescue so many people within this money. And the fact that we are sort of faltering in terms of the federal resources, so much of what we had coming in has now expired, as you said. And although there's some talk about maybe more resources coming, it's not clear when, it's not clear how much. We asked, for example, to save our tenants, we asked for another, $1 billion, and we got like 27 million. So, there is a gap between the need and the cash flow, but I think your advocacy is right. And, I can't promise, but we can work towards expanding it.
Thank you. Certainly, we're going to continue to beat that drum.
I bet.
Well, it's eye-opening, when you look at staffing reductions and some of the challenges we face. We've been talking about this with you and your colleagues the last few years, couple of years. I know there's consensus. This is on the backs of our workers being the essential workers that are delivering life-saving services every day. So, we're going to keep.
And as I said, I think at this point we're in a little better situation, obviously in terms of revenue, but also in terms of the consciousness of what you do. But like I said, you have a delegation that has been very, very clear and has always been clear on the importance of this sector. And we want, we do want to support you in the same way we're trying to support small business, trying to support arts. We're trying to support so many things. You deserve it as well.
We're confident we're going to get there together. Speaking of our delegation, I have like multiple pages of Zoom boxes, so I fear I'll miss. But I do see Senator Reichlin Melnick joining us, Senator Mayer, who's always made herself available to this forum, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, I see on. We have county legislators on, Catherine Parker and Mary Jane Shimsky, I saw. representatives from Assemblyman Macias' office. So I'm going to miss some folks. I'll keep
Excellent.
trying to scan the Zoom boxes, but thank you all to our elected leaders for joining. What I'll share quickly, and we'll get into some of the target area questions, is just an overview of our policy agenda. We're really centered around three things. So not-for-profit Westchester's policy focus is number one, equitable contracting. So bringing the not-for-profit sector to the table as an equitable partner, as you said earlier. A big reason that a lot of our services exist is because we can deliver them more effectively and more cost effectively than government. And as a deliverer of mandated services in partnership with government, we want to be an equitable partner with equitable wages for our staff, payment in full, on-time contracts, full reimbursement for indirect services. The number two agenda item for us is the capacity building of our sector. And as Jan mentioned earlier, making sure all funds are available to our sector like they are to the business community, so that not-for-profits have the infrastructure they need to deliver. And that includes small organizations, MWBE organizations, and organizations that have been historically overlooked or left out of that core infrastructure funding. And then lastly, we advocate for the issues of our over 250 members. And we've talked about those issues many times. That's where we're going to go now. But we span, from environmental causes to housing and homelessness, childcare, youth development, issues around hunger, the digital divide, immigrant rights. Not-for-profit Westchester is blessed to be, to encompass, so many powerful missions by so many excellent organizations. So that's really where we are, equitable contracting for our sector, capacity building for our sector, and then advancing the missions and the organizational expertise of our members. And that's what we're going to continue to champion from NPW. So to kick off some of those individual policy issues, I'd like to invite Juanita Pope from the Child Care Council to kick us off with some questions.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. My name is Juanita Pope. I am the Office and Community Events Manager at the Child Care Council of Westchester and a proud member of Nonprofit Westchester. Thank you, NPW, for allowing me to speak today. And to one of our most respected leaders in New York, Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins. Majority Leader, I would like to thank you for your continued commitment to our community and taking out time of your demanding schedule to listen and respond, to our concerns today. Nonprofit contracts, they have failed to include cost of living increases for years, and we just need to catch up to help our workforce meet the standard cost of living in Westchester. The multi-year nature of many of our contracts, they lock in already very low wages over 5 years in many cases. Our nonprofit employees like myself, working for agencies that offer critical programs and services, we're finding it increasingly difficult and almost impossible just to make ends meet. I mean, personally, I'm passionate about the work that I do. I've been at the nonprofit sector for over 20 years, but I also need, to feed my family, and I have rent to pay. So in a recent NPW survey, our members, pertaining to housing, of course, we learned that 60% of respondents are cost burdened when it comes to housing, and that rises to 70% for direct care respondents. This compares to 41% of the Westchester population. But things are even getting worse, during the pandemic. Many profit businesses, they're able to offer different incentives to overcome staffing difficulties by offering higher wages, sign-on bonuses on top of hazard pay, just to attract workers. But for the nonprofit sector, raising pay typically isn't an option for us unless we have, those budget increases. We're losing most of our workers to other organizations or businesses like Walmart and Wendy's. If we can't pay our staff, we can't keep them. And then we can't deliver those essential services and support our missions to build back, a better and a stronger community. We did receive a lot of relief funds. We thank you for that, to help our services, but we also need to keep staff to be able to provide those services. So
I know. I mean,
John, I'm sorry.
I'm hearing the feedback. Yeah, I just wanted to say we are with you on that. We fought last year to get the cost of living for our nonprofit sector. We fought again this year. I see again, the governor has just at least put in some cost of living increases for some of the sectors, you know, our OASIS and OPWDD and play that have been ignored. I mean, I cannot tell you how frustrating it has been to have to beg for, you know, people to get a wage, as you said. I mean, it's one thing to bring passion to the job, but you know, passion can't feed your family. And so we are fighting for more childcare. Not only, you know, we are, again, in this budget, she's making childcare eligible, you know, more people eligible for subsidies. And our delegation is laser focused on saying, what about the workers? Because we know you're competing with Walmart and Wendy, we know that. And also you hear us fighting hard for home care workers as well. You know, I mean, people need people, you want people to stay in their homes, but you know, they're doing incredibly important and hard work, and yet so many are living, you know, on the margins. So we hear you, and we during this budget, you know, are committed to fight for, again, everybody, but certainly as it relates to childcare, home care, we understand how important this is, and you know, not locking you into contracts and not giving you the COLA. The thing that gets me is that you promise the cost of living increase and then they don't give it. That's, you know, and that's what I was saying. You know, when we were in a crisis, the first people who get cut are my nonprofits and the poor workers who are doing so much. So I do believe it's a different era, and I'm with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening and your continued leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. You know, I know that, you know, in Governor Hochul's budget proposal, there is a COLA for human services workers. Obviously, we would seek for that to be deeper and broader. And I'll remind that our workforce is largely women and people of color, and truly essential folks on the front lines who have been doing life-saving work in our community. So we will keep pushing our delegation and pushing the whole on as broad a COLA for our sector. It is overdue. Juanita began to talk about housing a little bit when we talk about, you know, part of the reason we need COLAs and we need salaries because people need to live in this community. So it's a perfect segue to Ron Abad from CHI to talk a little bit about housing and issues around homelessness. Ron, you are muted, sir. Suzanne did an excellent job, so assume you're muted until further noted.
I'm loud and clear now, Rich. Thank you. Appreciate
Perfect.
it. The Majority Leader, thank you for your laser-like focus and leadership. And know when you're a leader in our state, you're actually a leader in our nation, right? So you sort of set the example, you set the bar, you raise the bar. So I definitely appreciate the great work you've done for the last few many years. On the affordable housing and supportive housing, homelessness prevention, eviction, space, home ownership, et cetera. You know, the governor just issued a great budget, you know, a great budget of $25 billion 5-year plan to build several 100,000 more affordable homes and supportive units. And I think the next step is at the legislature. It's in your hands, or the legislature. What's the real action steps that you and the entire legislature will take to take this to fruition?
Well, the way the budget works, and Ron, I'm so happy to see you again. I know this is your kind of inaugural a year, right? So thank you for the good work. I was happy to meet you while we were celebrating affordable housing. So,
absolutely.
Thank you for what you and your organization does. I hate to keep saying that we know this, we care, but I guess that's going to be my hour. We know this, we care, and you know, we want more even for that, you know, because the commitment, it is not several hundred, I mean, it's 100,000 units that basically they're talking about over a 5-year period. I mean, just to remind and to acquaint some of you, it was our legislative, both the Assembly and the Senate, who, with the awareness of the need for affordable housing, really made the strongest tenant laws in the history of the state. We changed a lot so that people would at least be able to hold on to the small stock of affordable housing that we have. And we stopped even making it come up to be sort of fought about every few years. The previous majority would have the rent laws sunset, and then poor tenants would be scrambling, hoping and praying that somebody understood how important having a roof over people's head was. And so we even stopped that. So we get it. We are looking at not only the affordable, I think she also included in the budget the accessory dwellings, allowing people to be able to, build other units on their properties. We are looking at a real plan. I always say if Mitchell and Lama, all those years back, being faced with affordable housing problems could figure out some plan or some program, I cannot imagine that we at this time cannot figure out, something similar that will be very, very sustained. And so I have spoken to the governor on that, spoken to my housing team, and we're really trying to figure out how we bring people to the table with a plan to do something that's long-term. And certainly you would be involved in those discussions as well. I think, Rich, we had a preliminary one where a few of the developers of affordable housing began a conversation about what would work, in Westchester, for example, in terms of encouraging affordable housing. And then there's a home ownership piece.
That's right. Exactly.
I want to create something, and I had dinner with the governor a couple of nights ago, and I talked to her about a plan in California where they are doing a bond that would allow for people to first-time home buyers and so on and so forth, people who have been traditionally locked out of the housing market, to be able to get resources, help developers get resources, mortgages and so on and so forth. So she was interested. So again, I'm presenting it to my team, and maybe, we can do something very similar here in California, because I think home owning opportunities have long eluded so many people.
Right.
And we can put a stop to that. Because I always say that wealth gap is very clear to me. And my dad was a World War II veteran, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, man came out of the Army, GI Bill didn't apply to him. They get public housing for Black soldiers and so on. But, other people got housing, and the next thing you know, there's a wealth gap. And my parents had nothing to pass on to us, whereas other families similarly situated had homes from which they could, launch their real American dream. So we want to deal with that. So, we're there, and I think again we will continue to move forward.
No, I hear you loud and clear. As you know, home ownership is the foundation for upward mobility, right? Actually,
that's right.
I'm the first time home buyer in my family.
That's right.
I bought my house close to 20 years ago in Westchester, and it just dramatically increased the mobility of my entire family. And we want to replicate that to all communities throughout.
That's right.
So thank you for your leadership and outstanding partnership, and we'll be in touch very soon. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. And I can attest, the majority leader and I have sat down very recently to talk about affordable housing. As you mentioned, we had a great follow-up with your team. And when you have something as urgent as our housing crisis, when the cost of living is crushing, literally like half of our community, and probably straining even more than that, it has to be fought on all ends. We have to protect tenants that are currently in place. And you guys have, the legislator has fought very hard for the rights of tenants, and that work needs to continue. But you also need to produce more product. We need to produce more high quality affordable housing. And that's investment in our urban centers like Yonkers, where you and I sit, but that's also north of 287 and throughout our community. Everyone needs to do their fair share to make this a more affordable place to live for everyone. So this is going to be an issue that we continue to fight on, on all fronts, I think, and we really value your partnership in that.
And I value yours. Again, we all certainly who represent Westchester are, I think we're just so fortunate because so many people are focused on so many things, and you all do it so well. So it's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Couple more topic areas we're going to get to today. Very pleased to call on my colleague from the Yonkers YMCA, Lucrea Ortiz, to talk about violence prevention and some other issues in our community.
Thank you so much, Rich. So happy to be here. Always happy to see you, Majority Leader. We are super grateful for your zealous and fierce advocacy in terms of violence prevention. We know you are a friend to us in the nonprofit sector when it comes to this issue. We applaud Governor Hochul's efforts, her three-part agenda that she put forth aimed at gun safety, gun trafficking, and community-based gun violence initiatives. And that's what obviously I want to focus on, is what our CBOs are talking about on the ground. Anti-violence work, especially in this time in the pandemic, really needs to focus on mental health and trauma support. It is not just about the individual picking up the gun. Certainly that person needs focus, but the entire community needs focus when a shooting happens. It's also not just an urban problem. We're seeing violence across our country, across our county, in various areas. We obviously want to note the work that our credible messengers do on the ground to reduce gun and community violence. But we'd like to know, what is the legislature's commitment to addressing trauma, mental health, and community violence as intersecting issues?
Well, if you had been on my conference yesterday, we had on the heels of, again, this tragic shooting that, 11-month-old child wound up, in the hospital in the Bronx, a respirator, shot in the face, and a conference that was largely going to be about just the kind of mundane issues of a quote unquote getaway day turned into a full-blown and in-depth discussion about all these things that you're talking about. Obviously, there's the what can we do? There's organizations like yours, SNUG, and I'm proud to be one of the mothers of SNUG, and certainly the reason why it's in Yonkers and Mount Vernon, Senator Ruth Hassel Thompson at that time brought it there, but it's a statewide thing that we began back in 2009 in order to have these credible messengers try and stop the violence there. But we also talked about, okay, if certain organizations need more money today, that's fine. But we also know that mental health is critically important. And again, we had an hour discussion about the intersectionality, about what we as legislators could do, about the trauma. And I think you see, again, our investments, we've started to turn this ship around. That's why we're focused so much on education. That's why we're focused on childcare. That's why we're focused on after school programs. That's why we're focused on mental health. We've got a joint task force, opioid and a drug. I'm trying to, I don't know exactly about opioid and drug abuse, but the task force led by Senator Harcum, looking at what we can do in terms of how to deal with that piece of the puzzle. And of course, we know about co-occurring disorders and how, and I thank Stephanie Marcasano for making sure we all pay attention to that. So we are pushing in every direction. We know there's not one size fits all. And, I'm so tired of hearing that every problem is bail. And I will, it seems to be like kind of the catch-all fallback. So therefore, I don't even get it anymore, but it's like, no matter what happens, it's like that bail law. And I will just tell you all again, that we did what we did. We didn't wake up and just say, well, we just wanted, do something different. We did what we did because of the reality of the disparate charging, the disparate access to justice that Black and brown and poor communities had when they're sitting in jail, so they're sitting in Rikers Island, and you don't have $1,000 or something for some accusation. I always bring back Khalif Browder, who was sadly the poster child of what the injustice of not having enough money to get out when you're accused of a petty crime. So we did take away bail for misdemeanors. We did take away bail for most nonviolent felonies. And when we had feedback from people like our own commissioner here in Yonkers, Commissioner Mueller, who said, what about the repeat offenders? We actually went back and we said, okay, if people are, breaking into cars today and then you break into a car tomorrow, now you're bailable. So it's not like we didn't listen. It's not like we haven't done anything, but people are pretending that no matter what happens, it's because of bail reform, and it's become a political talking point, quite frankly, in order to sort of, I think, frighten people. Progressive leaders, don't care about you, don't care about crime. And I know that as long as the crime rate is happening, people are, concerned, and we're with you on that, and we want to help stop. But I don't want to pretend that it's okay to say that just because we said, nonviolent offenses or misdemeanors are not bailable. And I said on an interview the other day, I said, Kyle Rittenhouse, shot 3 people, 2 of them died. Man was out on bail. Nobody seemed to care. I mean, he wasn't dangerous, I guess. And then you got an armored Arbery jogging through a neighborhood. He's dead. I guess he was dangerous. So I want to stop being part of a system that criminalizes poverty. I will not do it. And I will be a partner, in leading into all of these areas that you care about and really addressing them in ways that make sure that people, again, criminals are criminalized, but people who are mentally ill get mental help, and that we recognize that if we support our communities earlier, we will have less of this violence. So.
Well, we're so grateful that you're a voice that can get past the surface issues that we see in the media and draw them back to root causes like poverty, trauma, vicarious trauma, and mental health. So thank you so much, Majority Leader.
Thank you. Thanks for what you did.
Thank you, Lucrea, and yeah, well said on all there. And we need real change in our world. There's no doubt. But thank you. One more topic area for today. I'm going to call on Kathleen Macias Torres from Spark to talk a little bit about work in the disability space.
Hello, Majority Leader. Thank you so much for having me today in NPW. I'm Kathleen Macias Torres, and I'm the Executive Director of Spark. Spark is an organization in Westchester County, has been providing services for 33 years now for people with disabilities. And I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for your continued support, for your advocacy. You really supported people with disabilities, an important effort. And I also would like to say that, in terms of Governor's State of the State, she really highlighted making New York a model for the employment of workers with disabilities. And that's such an important topic. It's an important topic for us as well, an important issue for NPW. Over the past year, NPW has created a disabilities roundtable together with my colleagues, and something that Jan Fisher really supported us. And our focus in that disabilities roundtable is to bring up critical issues, in particular this issue of employment for those people with disabilities. Right now, we're planning on launching out a survey to all nonprofit providers and in our members and outside in all different aspects in businesses. We want to know what the efforts are in terms of really employing people with disabilities. We want to know what the goal is. So right now, I'd like to ask you in terms of how can we work together with state legislators to truly advance the equity for people with disabilities?
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for what you do too. I know Spark has been around for a long time, taking the lead on so many of these issues of disability. And one of the things that I did, and I'm very happy that I was able to do it, is I made a committee just focus on that. You know, it used to be that it was in this, you know, it was just mental health and disabilities, and you know, it was all in kind of one committee, and people were sort of vying for listen to me, and obviously, you know, there's a lot of different issues. So I have a committee that is absolutely focused on disabilities. Is chaired by Senator Mannion, who is a great, strong advocate. He has a child who's autistic, and you know, he is firsthand dealing with this. And on the Assembly side, I'm happy that they followed suit, and Assemblyman Abenanti is the chair of that. So in both houses, there is a committee that is meeting, you know, weekly to deal with these issues. And again, you don't have to tell us. We are very involved with all of our organizations, and that's, you know, part of why we're fighting again for even the home care and this and that, because we know there's support that's necessary in order for people to be able to fully achieve their potential. I myself have a crew that I've hired for years of disabled individuals, and they clean my office. So I am a big proponent of employing people with disabilities. And like I said, obviously the governor is, again, I think for the first time ever, is actually focused on, you know, starting a new chapter. So you were, I think, at the right place at the right time. We all know that none of these things are easy because, as you said, we have to change people's minds. We have to open their minds, and we're going to do that with our partners in labor and other places. But I do believe that this is going to be, you know, I think the beginning of a chapter that the disabled will feel that they are heard and respected. And because we know any day we could, you know, you just never know. So I think it's a good time to be where you are, and I look forward to our partnership, and then certainly working through our committees, we will be able to do a lot. And leading by example, which is what I hope to do as well.
I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. I mean, now as a board member of NPW, as well as being part of the chairing the Disabilities Advisory Committee, I'm looking forward to working with you closely.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I know another related issue. Thank you, Kathleen, is, you know, around state reimbursement for residential services, you know, for various not-for-profits that deliver services to the disabled and to other populations. So I know that is another issue that, you know, involves a lot of our membership. I want to thank everyone for each area today. There have been some really great stuff in the chat. I'm sure that the leader staff are taking some of this down, and if not, Jan, I'm sure we can get a summary out there. I wanted to see if Bridget Griswold from Groundwork Hudson Valley was able to comment on some of the environmental issues that were in the state budget that she flagged in the chat. Are you there, Bridget?
I am. Hi, everyone. I'm hello, leader.
Hi, Bridget. Good. I'm glad you're here. I think I saw Karen put something in the chat, but good you're here too. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for putting me on the spot, Rich. Appreciate it.
I'm always here for you, Bridget. Go ahead, please.
I just want to shout out the unbelievable bond act that you and the governor have put forward to address climate change. A total of $4 billion now that is going on the ballot next November. This is a once in a generation initiative, not just for New York State, but the nation and the world. And if it passes, it will be record breaking. So I just want to say how grateful we are for your record, both on the Climate Act that was passed during your tenure, but also this ballot measure, which would not only ensure that our communities have clean water, clean air, and good jobs, but it recognizes the intersectionality of all these issues that we're talking about, and especially with COVID, with our most vulnerable residents standing to suffer from greater risk from extreme heat and flooding that is affecting our communities. We're so grateful for your leadership on this and for setting the standard for the nation, and fingers crossed that it will pass. We look forward to working with you to getting the word out and making sure that everyone votes yes on that ballot measure.
Thank you so much, Bridget, and thank you for your leadership of groundwork. As I said, I'm always so proud to be wherever you guys are, because, like I said, you not only do good things in terms of the environment, but again, you make sure that our youth are involved. And so many of these young people have understood in ways that certainly when I was growing up, I would never understand how important it is that we do the work and that we preserve the planet that we all, expect to sustain us. So you have engaged young people over the years in tremendous ways, and they continue to be leaders long after they leave groundwork. So thank you for that. And again, talking about bond acts, the bond act that we missed out on this past November, this allowing us to have mail-in, no excuse ballots. Right now we still do, because of COVID. We were able to sustain mail-in voting, and we put it on the ballot. It was a constitutional change, and we put it on the ballot. And I'll tell you, a billionaire, Ron Lauder of Estee Lauder, decided that again, there's a war on voting, and the next thing you know, there was just all these innocuous, seemingly, don't vote for 3, don't vote for ballot 4, don't vote for, and put millions of dollars into defeating what unfortunately was in the best interest of the people of New York State. And people don't know, again, it's the same conversation over and over again. It is pervasive. Somehow, a bad messaging gets out, they put some money behind it, and next thing you know, people are like, oh, I don't want to do this. They didn't even know, they would never say who's telling you to vote against this. It's just like, oh, why are we doing this? So that I'm saying all this to say, I want to believe that people think clean air and clean water and green jobs is important, but I don't know who's going to think that this is some threat to whatever agenda they have. So to Bridget's point, we cannot sleep on this. We can't assume that everybody understands that clean air and clean water is a good thing. I can't assume that anymore. I'm glad that the governor renamed it, because before the Bond Act, as the previous governor, it was something restoring Mother Nature or something. I think making it clear that it's clean air, clean water, green jobs will help. But if somebody just decides for whatever reason that, we just shouldn't do this and says vote against number 2 and puts millions of dollars in it, we could have a problem. So please be mindful that not everybody gets it. And I certainly, and our delegation in Westchester will be working hard to get the information out and the education out, but it's all of you who reach all of the people. And let me tell you, in our leadership with, you know, if there's something on, if there's something on the ballot for people to vote on, you know, vote for it. You know, these things don't get there because the leadership didn't like them. They're there because it's what we're doing. And, you know, like I said, unfortunately, we, you know, we just didn't, you know, on a state level, put the millions of dollars in to counter some of that stuff. It would have been, you know, I mean, I don't even want to go into how many things, missed opportunities we had. So we can't miss any more, certainly as it relates to our environment.
I think, you know, we have so many urgent and important issues. If we have no world, none of them matter. So
Doesn't matter, right?
yeah, you know, all this stuff matters. And I appreciate, you know, kind of the general comment on not letting, you know, kind of rogue special interests dominate, you know, and doing what's best, obviously, for our community. So, you know, NPW is great at packing this in, you know, in 55 minutes, you know, we've discussed our priorities around, you know, ARPA funding and the not-for-profit infrastructure, equitable contracting, especially back to Juanita's, you know, remarks around COLAs and the importance of our frontline workers and equity in our sector. And then some of these targeted issues around childcare, around housing and homelessness, around violence prevention, around the disability community, mental health, environmental concerns. There's so much here. So as we kind of get towards a wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to invite your colleagues, we're so grateful for the other senators for joining us today to discuss maybe if there are a top priority or two that wasn't highlighted today that you want to make sure we know you're working on. We'd love to hear that from you or your colleagues.
I think I'll let my colleagues who are just tremendous have an opportunity to speak up. So I guess we can start. I don't know, I haven't been scrolling through, but you said Senator Mayer is on.
Senator Mayer's there. I have her box right next to her.
Melnick is on. Okay, so why don't we start with Senator Mayer if she's around?
Please, thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. And what an incredible group. Thank you, Jan, for making this happen with such fantastic substantive comments. Very helpful for all of us to hear. And of course, to the Majority Leader, we're just so fortunate to have such courageous leadership and thoughtful leadership that allows us to do good work. Two things on education, just very briefly. One, we think there is the opportunity to invest more heavily in full day pre-K beyond what the governor put in her first budget last year. With the Majority Leader's push behind it, we greatly expanded full day pre-K. You know, in the city of New York, you're automatically entitled at age 4, but if you cross over into Westchester, you're not automatically entitled, and it's a grant funded program. Except when we started to change it. We want full day pre-K in every community. Secondly, we believe childcare is part of the education really continuum and allows particularly women to go back to work. And we want to see additional investment in childcare. For me on education, the other thing is we want more investment in career and technical education. It is the path for a very much middle-class job for thousands of our young people. We have to rethink the way we have traditionally sort of backed into thinking of it as someone who isn't able to go to college. It's not that. It's an affirmative choice, and we should present it at that. So those things will be priorities, as well as working with our higher education leadership and Toby Stavisky on really making sure SUNY and CUNY remain affordable, remain accessible, and are part of the continuum of educational choices. So I will be brief, but thank you for letting me jump in on those. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our conference's commitment to ensuring that home care workers and caregivers really benefit by the fact that our economy is doing well. They have been left behind, and I know the Majority Leader has been a leader on this. We're going to fight to try to fix that.
Senator Mayer, thank you. You're our go-to on many issues, but on education especially, it's incredible to have a champion on all aspects. Everything you brought up there is such a critical part of this conversation, early childhood all the way to the SUNYs and everything in between. But thank you. Majority Leader, I saw lots of nodding from Senator Reichlin-Melnick, but I do think he dropped off. Speak up if I'm mistaken, and I'd love to give you the last word to kind of close us out this morning.
Okay, so Senator Reichlin Melnick, if he did drop off, but you should know that he too got a committee that I have a lot of members, and so I had a lot of opportunity. And for him, because he'd been in government so long in different levels, I asked him to do procurements and contracts. So again, when we talk about contracts and the slowness and so on and so forth, this is a focus for him. And I, obviously, I echo what you said about Senator Mayer in terms of, her ability to really champion so many issues. And again, she's chair of the Education Committee, and, statewide education is no easy feat, but she manages to do it with incredible deftness. And so we do. And I said, I will talk about, but I won't talk about each and every member, but you all know my people, and they are amazing on the Senate side, on the Assembly side. So we're all good. But like I said, we're only that good because you're as good as you are. When we walk into a room and we are talking about what our organization said, and I'm not leaving you out, Ty, because you're I got a lot of New York City members, as you know. So, but for us to have the depth of knowledge and experience and commitment and passion and people who unfortunately know how to make a way, as they say, out of no way, you get a little bit and you like stretch it to the limits, and you never, ever, ever lose your focus. It is just an amazing thing to behold. And the fact that, I've got more than 100 such organizations practically, spanning the entire spectrum of needs, from every part of our community, is just, means that we have an abundance of riches. And this is a great opportunity to take advantage of this abundance of riches. And obviously the fragility of it all, we know too well now with COVID, but the need to actually address these longstanding fissures and make sure that we understand we're always going to need you, and try and give you the things that you need to shore up our future. So we got to save the planet. We got to save the housing for the people, which includes the planet, but we've got to save you, because you definitely are our human infrastructure. And we appreciate you in many, 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 many ways. And I'm happy to be able to deliver that message on behalf of all of us. Hopefully we will have, a better budget at the end, and it's good. And, we could always work to make it better. But, if we don't do it all now, we will continue to work until we get, until we get it done. So thank you for hosting this, Jan. Thank you for allowing me the time.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, let's get a round of applause here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Thank you especially to all of our electeds that tuned in, and to our featured speaker today, our Majority Leader Stewart-Cousins. Our commitment for NPW is that even though we agree on so many things, we'll never stop fighting for what we think will be the most equitable and best community for everyone. And you've always made us a priority, and we look forward to that continuing.
Rich, let me just say, I forgot to even acknowledge my county people who are on there too, because, like I said, it's congressional, it's county, we, all of us rowing together, have really made a difference. So I don't want to leave without acknowledging the county government, the legislators, the deputies, the county executive, just wonderful partners. So I think, like I said, we're in a good space.